In a clean and wealthy HOA community, everything looks calm and perfect on the surface. Smooth roads shine under soft streetlights, green lawns are trimmed evenly, and expensive homes sit quietly behind tall fences. But beneath this beauty lies a cold system where rules are stronger than hearts. Cameras watch every sidewalk without blinking. Guards patrol slowly with radios in hand, and anyone who looks poor, tired, or out of place is treated like a problem waiting to happen. Inside this community lives a struggling single dad named Daniel Carter, a man in his late 30s with tired eyes and a heavy heart. He works long hours at a warehouse just outside the HOA, his back always aching, his hands rough from labor, but every evening he walks home with his young son Eli, holding his small hand tightly like it is the most important thing in the world, because for Daniel, it is. Daniel was not always this tired, not always this careful. Life changed fast after his wife passed away, leaving him alone with a child and a pile of responsibilities he never asked for. Bills came faster than paychecks, friends slowly disappeared, and every day became about survival. But no matter how hard life hit him, Daniel promised himself one thing. His son would grow up kind, not bitter. That evening, the sky is painted in soft orange and gray as Daniel and Eli walk along the edge of the HOA. Their path carefully chosen to avoid trouble. Daniel knows the rules well: no loitering, no helping outsiders, no gatherings near trash areas. Rules written not on signs but enforced through fear. Eli hums quietly beside him, swinging his backpack, unaware of how tightly his father watches the world around them. As they pass the HOA trash area near the back service road, something feels wrong. Daniel slows his steps without realizing it. His eyes catch movement near the dumpsters. Two figures sit low against the wall, wrapped in thin jackets, their shoulders slumped, heads down, not begging, not speaking, just existing quietly like they hope not to be noticed. They are two hungry strangers, one older man with sunken cheeks and shaking hands, the other a woman not much younger than Daniel, her face pale, her eyes hollow with exhaustion. A small bag rests between them, empty, their silence louder than words. Residents pass by on the other side of the road. One woman pretends to take a phone call. Another man walks faster, eyes fixed forward. A car slows for a second, then speeds away. No one stops, no one asks, no one helps. Daniel's chest tightens. He has seen hunger before, felt it himself when money ran out and Eli slept early to avoid asking for dinner. He knows that look, the mix of shame and weakness, the hope that maybe someone will notice without being asked. Daniel keeps walking. At least he tries to. Eli suddenly stops. "Dad?" Eli asks softly. Daniel turns, forcing a small smile. "Yeah, buddy?" Eli points back toward the dumpsters, his young face confused, innocent. "Why are those people sitting there?" he asks. Daniel hesitates, his mind racing. How do you explain cruelty wrapped in rules to a child? "They're just resting," he says carefully. Eli tilts his head, not convinced. "They look hungry," he says quietly, his voice low but clear. Daniel feels something heavy press against his chest. Cameras blink above them. Guards stand at a distance, watching movement. Daniel knows stopping could mean a warning, a fine, or worse. He has already been reported once for lingering too long. He squeezes Eli's hand gently. "We should go home," Daniel says. Eli doesn't move. "Dad," he says again, his voice shaking now. Why isn't anyone helping them? The question hits Daniel harder than any rule ever could. He looks at his son, really looks at him, sees the confusion in his eyes, the trust, the belief that adults do the right thing. Daniel feels fear and shame mixed together. If he walks away now, what lesson does that teach? That kindness is optional, that rules matter more than people. Daniel glances around again. Guards shift slightly. One of them looks in their direction. Daniel knows time is running out. His heart pounds, his wallet is light, barely enough food at home. But still, he takes a slow breath. "We can't always help everyone," Daniel starts to say, but the words feel wrong in his mouth. Eli looks down at his backpack, unzips it slowly, and pulls out a sandwich wrapped in paper. His lunch from earlier that day, half eaten but still good. He holds it out toward his father. "Can we help just them?" Eli whispers. Daniel feels his eyes burn. In that moment, the rules fade into the background, the cameras, the guards, the fear, all of it becomes noise, because the most important thing in front of him is his son, standing there with food in his hands, ready to give it away without hesitation. Daniel makes a choice. He turns back toward the strangers. Every step feels heavy, like he's crossing an invisible line. His mind fills with worst-case thoughts, fines, reports, eviction threats, but his feet keep moving. The older man looks up first, startled, his eyes wide with caution. The woman straightens slightly, fear flashing across her face. They are used to being chased away, judged, ignored. Daniel stops a safe distance away, keeping his hands visible, his voice calm. "Hey," he says gently, "are you okay?" The woman shakes her head slightly, embarrassed. "We don't want trouble," she says quickly. "No trouble," Daniel replies. "Just we saw you." Eli steps forward before Daniel can stop him and holds out the sandwich, his small hand trembling. "You can have mine," he says softly. The woman's eyes fill with tears instantly. The older man swallows hard, his voice barely audible. "Thank you," he whispers, taking the sandwich carefully like it might disappear. Daniel feels eyes on his back now. Whispers start. Someone pulls out a phone. A guard speaks into his radio. Daniel knows this moment is being recorded, judged, but he kneels slightly to be at Eli's level. "You okay, buddy?" Daniel asks quietly. Eli nods, watching the strangers eat slowly, gratefully. "Yeah," he says, "I just didn't want them to be hungry." The woman wipes her eyes, her voice shaking. "We haven't eaten all day," she admits softly. "We lost our jobs, then our place." Daniel's heart sinks. He knows that road too well, how fast life can fall apart. He wants to do more, but fear pulls at him again. Guards are moving closer now. Their boots echo on the pavement. "Sir," a guard calls out sharply, "you can't be here." Daniel stands slowly, shielding Eli slightly behind him. "I'm just giving them food," he says, his voice steady but tense. "This area doesn't allow unauthorized assistance." The guard replies coldly, "You're creating a disturbance." Eli looks up at his father, scared, confused. "Dad, are we in trouble?" he asks. Daniel's chest tightens painfully. He looks at the guard, then at the strangers, then back at his son. He realizes something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. This moment will stay with Eli forever, no matter how it ends. Daniel takes a deep breath. "We're leaving," he says calmly. "But they didn't do anything wrong." The guard doesn't respond, just watches. As Daniel takes Eli's hand and turns to walk away, the woman's voice stops him. "Thank you," she says again, louder this time. "You didn't have to." Daniel nods without turning back, his heart racing, fear crawling up his spine. He knows something has changed. This small act will not end quietly. Cameras saw it, rules were broken, and consequences will come. But as they walk home, Eli squeezes Daniel's hand tighter than usual. "Dad," he says softly, "I'm glad we helped." Daniel closes his eyes briefly, holding back emotion. "So am I," he replies. Behind them, guards continue watching, phones keep recording, and somewhere inside the HO, a well-dressed woman watches the footage on her tablet, her expression unreadable, her heart stirred by what she sees. Daniel does not know it yet, but that simple act of kindness, sparked by a child's question, has just pulled them into a chain of events that will test rules, expose cruelty, and change many lives forever. And under the calm HOA lights, a single dad and his son walk forward, unaware that this was only the beginning. Daniel and Eli have barely taken 10 steps away from the trash area when Daniel feels it. That heavy pressure on the back of his neck, the feeling of being watched, judged, recorded. He does not turn around at first, but the sound of boots getting closer makes his stomach drop. Eli's small hand tightens in his, sensing danger before he understands it. "Sir," a guard calls again, louder now. "Stop where you are." Daniel stops slowly, his shoulders stiff. He turns just enough to face the guard without letting go of Eli. His heart beats hard, but his voice stays calm. "We're leaving," he says. "There's no problem." The guard steps closer, his face flat, professional, but his eyes cold. "You violated HOA conduct rules," he says, tapping his radio. Unauthorized interaction, creating a disturbance. Eli looks up, panic spreading across his face. Dad, are we bad? He whispers. That single sentence hits Daniel harder than the guard's voice ever could. No. Daniel answers instantly, kneeling slightly so he's eye level with his son. You didn't do anything wrong, he says firmly, even though fear is screaming inside him. Around them, neighbors stop walking, doors open slowly, phones rise like shields, recording, whispering, someone mutters, "Here we go again." Another says louder, "Why is he feeding them here?" Judgment spreads fast in rich places. The two hungry strangers stand awkwardly by the wall, half-eaten sandwich in trembling hands, guilt written all over their faces. The woman steps forward nervously. "Please," she says softly. "We'll go, we don't want trouble." The guard ignores her completely. "This is not about them," he says sharply, eyes fixed on Daniel. "It's about you." Daniel feels anger rise, hot and dangerous, but he swallows it down. Anger will only make things worse. He has learned that the hard way. My son asked why no one was helping. Daniel says quietly, "I answered." That honesty makes the guard pause for half a second. Then his jaw tightens. "You should have kept walking," he replies. Eli hears that. His face changes. "Why?" Eli asks, his voice small but clear. "They were hungry." Silence falls for a moment. A neighbor laughs nervously, uncomfortable. Another looks away. The guard shifts his weight, annoyed now. "This is not a discussion," he says. "Sir, I need your name." Daniel hesitates. Giving your name in a place like this can follow you forever. But Eli is watching. Daniel straightens his back. "Daniel Carter," he says clearly. The guard types it into a device. That small action feels like a hammer hitting glass. Eli squeezes Daniel's hand harder. "Are we going to lose our home?" He whispers, remembering past nights when money was tight, when Daniel counted bills at the table. Daniel's throat tightens painfully. "I don't know," he answers honestly, then adds quickly, "But whatever happens, we did the right thing." The guard finishes typing and looks up. "This is a warning," he says. "Next time, it's a fine." He glances at the strangers. "And you two need to move along." The woman's shoulders slump in shame. The older man nods repeatedly, apologizing even though he has done nothing wrong. Daniel feels sick watching it. Kindness punished, need treated like a crime. As the strangers slowly walk away, the woman turns back once, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she mouths silently. To Eli. Eli waves weakly. That wave is caught on camera. Daniel knows it. They finally walk home, but the path feels longer, heavier. Eli is quiet now. Too quiet. Daniel keeps glancing down at him, worry gnawing at his chest. When they reach their small apartment door, Eli suddenly stops. "Dad?" he asks. "Yeah, buddy? Why did they look mad at us?" Eli asks, his voice shaking. "Helping is good, right?" Daniel closes the door behind them slowly and leans his forehead against it for a second. The weight of the world pressing down. This is the moment parents fear, when the world tries to teach their child the wrong lesson. Daniel kneels in front of Eli, holding his shoulders gently. "Listen to me," he says, his voice steady but emotional. "Helping is always good." His eyes shine slightly. "Sometimes people forget that, but we don't." Eli nods slowly, absorbing it, then asks the question Daniel feared most. "Will they be okay?" Daniel thinks of the strangers disappearing into the night, empty stomachs, nowhere safe to go, and answers honestly, "I hope so." Later that night, as Eli sleeps, Daniel sits alone at the small kitchen table, phone buzzing with a message. HOA notice. Incident reported. His hands tremble as he reads it. Warning language, formal tone, consequences implied. His chest tightens, fear floods back. Eviction, fines, job risk, it all flashes through his mind. But then he looks toward Eli's room. He remembers the sandwich, the question, the wave. Daniel exhales slowly. Whatever comes next, he knows one thing for sure. His son will never learn to look away. And somewhere across the HOA, inside a quiet living room, The same well-dressed woman replays the footage again, watching a single dad kneel to comfort his scared child, watching a boy offer food without hesitation. Her eyes soften, her phone lights up, she makes a call. Because this story is no longer about a warning that IT is about to become something much bigger. The night does not bring Daniel any peace. The small apartment feels tighter than usual. The walls thin, every sound louder. He sits at the kitchen table long after Eli falls asleep. The HOA notice glowing on his phone like a warning sign he cannot ignore. Words like violation, recorded incident, further action. They sit heavy in his chest. He rubs his face slowly, exhaustion pressing down, fear creeping in quietly. Daniel has lived on the edge before. One fine, one complaint, one wrong move can push everything over. He thinks about rent, about work, about Eli's school. His jaw tightens, he whispers to himself, I just gave them food. But the system does not hear intentions, it only counts rules. The next morning comes too fast. Daniel walks Eli to school, holding his hand tighter than usual. Eli is quieter today, his eyes searching faces, learning something new about the world without understanding it fully. When they reach the school gate, Eli stops. Dad, he asks softly, are they going to be mad at me today? Daniel's heart breaks a little. No, he answers firmly, kneeling to meet his son's eyes. You did nothing wrong. He presses his forehead gently to Eli's, and I'm proud of you. Eli nods, but the worry doesn't fully leave his face. After work, Daniel receives another message. HOA hearing scheduled. Attendance required. His hands shake as he reads it. A hearing means witnesses, means recordings, means judgment, means people who have never known hunger deciding whether kindness broke a rule. Daniel sits down slowly, his chest tight. The world feels unfair in a way only adults understand. Across town, the two hungry strangers move slowly along a busy street. The older man leans heavily on the woman's arm, their steps uneven, the sandwich long gone, hunger returning fast. Their names are Frank and Marissa. Not criminals, not troublemakers, just people life chewed up and spit out quietly. Frank once worked construction for 30 years, his back ruined, his job gone after an injury. Marissa cleaned offices at night, lost work when buildings closed, medical bills followed, eviction came fast, friends stopped answering calls, shelters filled, dignity slowly disappeared. They sit on a bus bench now, watching people rush past. Marissa clutches the empty sandwich wrapper like it is something precious. That kid, she whispers. He didn't even hesitate. Frank nods slowly, his voice rough. Neither did his dad. They both know what that means. They have not felt that kind of kindness in a long time. Back in the HOA community, whispers start spreading. The video of Daniel and Eli circulates quietly in group chats. Comments are divided. Some say rules are rules. Others say something feels wrong. Tension grows like a crack spreading under polished floors. At the same time, the well-dressed woman who watched from a distance before sits in her living room again. Tablet in hand, replaying the footage. She pauses on the moment Eli holds out the sandwich. Her eyes soften. She exhales slowly. Her name is Claire Whitman, and she knows this HOA well. She invested in it years ago, trusted it, believed in its values. Her phone buzzes. She ignores it. Instead, she makes a call. I want to attend the next HOA hearing, she says calmly. In person. On the day of the hearing, Daniel dresses carefully, clean shirt, worn shoes. He looks at himself in the mirror, barely recognizing the man staring back. He looks older than he feels, or maybe the other way around. He takes a deep breath and steps outside with Eli. The HOA meeting room feels cold and formal. Chairs lined up, board members seated high, guards standing stiffly at the walls. Neighbors fill the seats, curious, judgmental, silent. Daniel feels small, exposed, but he keeps Eli close. The footage plays. Again, Daniel kneeling, Eli offering food, the strangers eating, the guard warning them. The room watches in silence. Some faces soften, others harden. A board member clears his throat. Mr. Carter, he says, you knowingly violated HOA policy by engaging unauthorized individuals. Daniel stands slowly. Yes, he says, his voice steady despite the fear. I did. Murmurs ripple. Why? the board member asks. Daniel looks down at Eli, then back up. Because my son asked me why no one was helping, he says, simply. That answer lands hard. Eli looks up at his father, eyes wide, proud and scared at the same time. The board member shifts uncomfortably. Intentions aside, he says, rules exist too. A voice interrupts calmly from the back of the room. Rules exist to protect people, Claire Whitman says as she stands, stepping forward slowly, confidently, every head turning toward her. Recognition spreads instantly. The room freezes. Daniel has no idea who she is, but the board does, and suddenly, the balance of power begins to shift. The HOA meeting room feels tighter the moment Claire Whitman's voice cuts through the air. Not loud, not angry, just calm and certain, the kind of voice that makes people listen even before they know why. Heads turn. Slowly, whispers stop, board members straighten in their seats. Some swallow hard. Others look down at their papers like they suddenly matter less. Claire steps forward, her heels quiet on the polished floor, her posture relaxed but confident. She does not rush. She does not explain herself right away. She lets the silence work, because silence has weight when you know how to use it. Rules exist to protect people, she repeats, eyes steady on the board. Not to punish kindness. Daniel stands frozen for a second, unsure if he should sit or remain standing. Eli grips his hand tighter, sensing the shift without understanding it fully. The room feels different now, like the air itself has changed direction. A board member clears his throat nervously, forcing a polite smile that does not reach his eyes. Ms. Whitman, he says, we appreciate your concern, but Claire raises one finger gently. No, she says softly. You appreciate my investment. The words land hard. A murmur ripples through the room. Neighbors exchange looks. Recognition spreads like a quiet wave. Daniel finally understands this woman is not just another resident. She is someone the board answers to, someone whose presence alone carries consequences. Claire turns slightly, gesturing toward the screen where the footage is paused. Eli frozen mid-motion. Sandwich extended. That, she says, is what your rules punished. She looks at Daniel then, really looks at him. Not like a subject, not like a problem, but like a person. You're a single father, she says gently. Daniel nods, his voice tight. Yes. And your son? She continues, smiling faintly at Eli. Ask the right question. Eli looks down shyly, then up again, courage flickering in his eyes. Claire turns back to the board, her voice still calm but sharper now. I watched the full footage. She says, multiple times. I saw a man do what most adults in this room did not. He chose empathy over comfort. A board member shifts uncomfortably. Ms. Whitman, our policies are in place to maintain safety. Safety for whom? Claire asks immediately. The question hangs there, unanswered. She continues, two hungry people sat quietly, not begging, not threatening, simply existing. And the response was to shame them and warn the man who helped them. Daniel feels his chest tighten, not with fear this time, but with something like relief, like someone finally said the truth out loud. A neighbor stands up suddenly, voice shaking. I saw them, she admits. I walked past. I told myself it wasn't my problem. Another resident nods slowly. Me too. The room begins to hum, guilt and honesty mixing. The perfect image of the HOA cracks a little more. Claire raises her hand gently, bringing the room back to stillness. This is not a trial of one man, she says. It is a mirror. She turns to Daniel again. You received a notice, she says. A threat of consequences. Daniel nods, jaw clenched. Yes. Claire looks back at the board, her tone now unmistakably firm. That notice will be withdrawn. A board member opens his mouth to protest. Claire does not let him. And, she adds, there will be no fine, no record, no further action against this family. The room holds its breath. Eli looks up at his father, eyes wide. Relief blooming slowly. Daniel squeezes his hand, emotion threatening to spill over. But that is not enough, Claire continues. Because the problem did not begin with this incident, and it will not end by erasing it. She gestures toward the guards standing stiffly at the wall. Security protocols will be reviewed immediately, she says, and until that review is complete, enforcement against humanitarian aid is suspended. A sharp intake of breath moves through the room. Daniel feels dizzy, not because he won, but because he never expected to be heard. The board looks defeated now, authority slipping through their fingers. One member tries to regain control. Ms. Whitman, these changes require a vote. Claire smiles politely. I am the vote, she says. Silence crashes down. Neighbors stare, some in awe, some in shame, some relieved. The system they trusted blindly is being forced to look at itself, and it does not like what it sees. Claire turns toward the door briefly, then back to Daniel and Eli. You're free to go, she says gently. But if you'll allow me, I'd like to speak with you after. Daniel nods slowly, overwhelmed. As they walk out of the room, Eli looks back once, seeing faces no longer judging, but thinking, questioning, changing outside. The air feels lighter. Daniel breathes deeply for the first time in days. Behind them, the meeting room erupts into hushed conversations. Rules debated, power reshuffled. The beginning of something irreversible. Claire steps out moments later, stopping beside Daniel. You taught your son the right lesson, she says quietly. Daniel swallows hard, voice breaking just a little. I just didn't want him to learn to look away. Claire nods, understanding completely. Then you did more than help two hungry strangers, she says. You reminded this place what it forgot. As they stand there, Eli looks up at both adults and asks innocently, Are they going to be okay? Claire smiles softly. We're going to make sure they are. Daniel does not know how, not yet, but for the first time, hope does not feel dangerous. Inside the HOA, rules begin to shake. Outside, a single dad and his son stand together, no longer afraid of doing the right thing. And the ripple from one small act of kindness continues spreading, quiet, unstoppable. The HOA meeting ends, but its echo follows everyone outside. Daniel walks slowly beside Eli, his mind still trying to catch up with what just happened. Fear that lived in his chest for days has not disappeared completely, but it has loosened, like a tight knot finally starting to open. Eli looks up at his father often, checking if everything is really okay. Claire Whitman walks a few steps behind them, speaking quietly into her phone, her voice calm but firm, the kind that does not ask for permission. Daniel hears fragments. Yes, find them, tonight. No police involvement unless needed. Treat them with dignity. He does not fully understand what is happening yet, but something tells him this is not empty talk. They stop near the same street where it all began. The quiet corner by the trash area now looks smaller, sadder, like it is ashamed of itself. Daniel's eyes scan the sidewalk instinctively. His heart sinks when he doesn't see the two strangers. They left, Eli says softly, disappointment in his voice. What if they're still hungry? Daniel feels that familiar ache again, the helplessness of wanting to do more. He opens his mouth to answer, but Claire speaks first. We'll find them, she says gently, kneeling slightly so she's closer to Eli's height. I promise. Eli studies her face carefully. Children always know when adults mean what they say. After a moment, he nods, trusting her completely. An hour later, a quiet van stops near a bus bench a few blocks away. Not flashy, not marked, just practical. Frank and Marissa sit there, shoulders slumped, exhaustion written into every movement. The city lights blur in their tired eyes. They expect nothing. They have learned not to hope. When the van door opens, Marissa flinches instinctively, ready to move, ready to be chased away again. But instead, a calm voice speaks. You're not in trouble. Frank looks up slowly, suspicion etched deep into his face. We didn't do anything, he says defensively. I know, Claire replies, stepping into view, her tone steady. That's why I'm here. Daniel and Eli stand a little behind her. Daniel unsure if his presence will help or make things harder. Eli spots them first, his eyes widen. It's them, he whispers excitedly. Marissa recognizes the boy instantly. Her eyes fill with tears again. You, she says softly, standing up despite her weakness. "You're okay." Eli nods quickly, smiling. "Yeah." Then adds seriously, "Did you eat more?" That question breaks something inside Marissa. She shakes her head slowly, ashamed. Before Daniel can stop him, Eli steps forward and reaches into his backpack again. Pulling out a small snack he saved from earlier, he holds it out with both hands, just like before. "You can have this too," he says. Frank turns his face away, his shoulders shaking, years of pride and pain collapsing all at once. "Thank you," he whispers, voice rough. "You didn't have to come back." Daniel steps closer now, his voice quiet but firm. "We wanted to make sure you were safe." Claire gestures toward the van. "There's a warm place waiting," she says. "Food, beds, medical help. No strings attached." Marissa hesitates, fear fighting hope. "Why?" she asks, the question heavy with years of disappointment. Claire looks at Eli, then back at her. "Because someone reminded us what matters," she answers honestly. They ride quietly to a small shelter partnered with a local charity. Not crowded, not cold, lights warm, staff gentle. Frank lowers himself into a chair with a deep sigh, like his body finally believes it can rest. Marissa accepts a bowl of soup with shaking hands, steam rising, tears falling into it without shame. Daniel watches from the doorway, his chest tight, memories flashing. Nights when he almost ended up in places like this himself. Eli stands beside him, eyes wide, absorbing everything, learning something no school could teach. A nurse approaches Frank carefully, checking his vitals. "We'll take care of your back," she says kindly. "You don't have to rush." Frank nods slowly, overwhelmed. Marissa looks at Daniel again. "They treated us like trash," she says quietly. "But you didn't." Daniel swallows hard. "I just listened to my son." Eli beams slightly at that. Later, as Daniel and Eli prepare to leave, Marissa reaches out, gripping Daniel's arm gently. "You don't know what tonight means," she says, voice breaking. "I forgot what it felt like to be seen." Daniel has no answer for that. His eyes burn. He nods once, trusting himself not to speak. Outside, the night air feels different, softer. Eli walks beside his father, unusually quiet, then suddenly asks, "Dad, are they going to be okay now?" Daniel thinks carefully, then answers honestly, "They have a chance." Eli smiles, satisfied. "That's good." Claire joins them, her expression thoughtful. "What you did started something," she says to Daniel. "Not just for them." Daniel exhales slowly, the weight of the last few days settling. "I was scared," he admits. Claire nods. "That's how you know it mattered." As they walk home, Daniel realizes something has changed inside him too. He no longer feels small in this community. Fear still exists, but it no longer controls his steps. Behind them, in the warm shelter, Frank sleeps for the first time in weeks. Marissa stares at the ceiling, tears of relief tracing silent paths down her cheeks. Two lives paused long enough to breathe again. And in the quiet streets of the HOA, whispers spread, not of violations or rules, but of a father, a child, and a moment that forced everyone to look at themselves. Kindness did not end the problem, but it opened the door, and sometimes, that is how everything begins. The next morning feels different in the HOA community. The streets are still clean, the lawn still perfect, but the silence is gone, replaced by whispers that move faster than footsteps. Phones buzz in pockets. Group chats light up. Videos are shared again and again. Some paused on Eli's small hand holding out a sandwich. Others frozen on Daniel standing between his son and a guard. Daniel feels it the moment he steps outside with Eli. Eyes follow them. Not all angry, not all kind, but heavy, curious, judging. He keeps his posture calm, his grip steady on Eli's hand, reminding himself that fear does not get to decide who he is today. At the mailbox, a neighbor shakes her head as they pass. "You shouldn't have caused trouble," she mutters under her breath. Not loud enough to confront, but loud enough to wound. Daniel doesn't respond. He keeps walking, but Eli hears it. "Dad," Eli asks quietly, "are we trouble?" Daniel stops. He kneels slowly in the middle of the sidewalk, ignoring the cameras, the stares, the rules, and looks his son in the eye. No, he says firmly. We are not trouble. His voice is calm but unbreakable. Sometimes trouble is what happens when people don't want to be reminded of what's right. Eli nods slowly, absorbing it, trusting him. At school pickup later that day, Daniel feels the divide more clearly. One parent avoids eye contact. Another offers a small smile, hesitant but real. A man Daniel barely knows steps closer, voice low. My kid asked me last night why I didn't help those people. He admits, shame heavy in his tone. I didn't know what to say. Daniel just nods, understanding. That evening, the HOA posts a notice on the community board, carefully written words about policy review and community values. No apology, no accountability yet, just distance. Daniel reads it silently, knowing it is only the beginning. At home, Eli sits at the small table drawing quietly. Daniel watches him for a moment before asking, "What are you drawing?" Eli turns the paper around. Simple, stick figures. 4 of them. Daniel, Eli, Frank, Marissa. They're holding hands. Above them, Eli has written in uneven letters, "N01 is hungry." Daniel feels his throat tighten. That night, a knock comes at the door. Daniel freezes for a moment, fear returning fast, notices, hearings, consequences flash through his mind. But when he opens it, he is surprised. It's the neighbor from 2 doors down, an older woman named Mrs. Alvarez. Her hands tremble slightly as she holds a small paper bag. "I saw what you did," she says quietly. "I didn't have the courage then, but I do now." She holds out the bag. Inside are sandwiches. Daniel doesn't speak at first. He just nods, emotion thick in his chest. "Thank you," he manages. More knocks come over the next hour. Not many, but enough. A man leaves canned food quietly at the door. A young couple slips an envelope with a grocery card inside. No names, no speeches, just action. Eli watches wide-eyed. "Dad, are we helping again?" Daniel smiles softly, tears threatening. "Yeah," he says, "together." The next day, Daniel and Eli walk with Claire to a small community hall outside the HOA gates. Tables are set up, modest, simple, word has spread quietly. Not announced, not advertised, but people arrive anyway. Some from the HOA, some not, carrying bags, boxes, food, blankets. Frank and Marissa arrive too. Looking stronger already, cleaner clothes, steadier steps. When they see Daniel and Eli, they stop, overwhelmed. Marissa presses a hand to her mouth. "You started this," she whispers. Daniel shakes his head. "We just didn't walk away." Eli steps forward proudly, holding a small sign he made himself. Help is not against the rules. People smile. Some laugh softly. Others look away, ashamed but thoughtful. A few HOA guards stand nearby, not enforcing, just watching, uncertain. The power they once felt gone, replaced by awareness. Claire addresses the small crowd briefly. "This isn't about breaking rules," she says. "It's about remembering why communities exist." No applause, just nods. As the sun begins to set, Daniel stands back and watches strangers eat, talk, rest, the sound of shared humanity filling the space. He feels something shift inside him again. Not fear, not anger, but belonging. Later that night, Daniel and Eli walk home together. Tired but peaceful. Eli looks up at the stars and asks, "Dad, what if people stop helping again?" Daniel thinks carefully, then answers honestly, "Then we help anyway." Eli smiles, satisfied. Behind them, the HOA lights still shine, cameras still blink, rules still exist, but something deeper has taken root now, a question that will not go away. What kind of community do we want to be? And thanks to a single dad and his son, that question is finally being asked. The knock does not come gently this time. It is firm, official, heavy. Daniel feels it in his chest before he even reaches the door, that familiar fear returning like an old enemy that never truly leaves. Eli looks up from the floor where he is sitting with his drawings, eyes wide, sensing danger without understanding it. "Dad?" he asks softly. Daniel forces a calm smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. "Stay right here," he says gently, then walks to the door, every step slow, controlled. When he opens it, 2 HOA representatives stand outside, dressed neatly, badges visible, faces polite but tight. Behind them a guard waits near the sidewalk, arms crossed, watching. "Mr. Carter," one of them says smoothly, "we need to speak with you." Daniel nods and steps outside, closing the door behind him carefully, not wanting Eli to hear everything, not wanting his son to feel like the world is knocking to take something away. "We've received multiple complaints," the man continues, flipping open a folder, "about ongoing gatherings and distribution of food near the HOA boundary." Daniel's jaw tightens. "We're helping people," he says calmly. The second representative sighs, almost sympathetic. "We understand emotions are high," she says, "but you are creating a pattern, and patterns become problems." That word again. Problem. Daniel feels his hands clench at his sides. "Feeding hungry people is not a problem," he says quietly. The man glances at the folder, then back up. "Your lease agreement includes clauses about activities that may affect community image," he says carefully. "Continued behavior like this could force us to reconsider your residency." There it is. The threat wrapped in polite language. Daniel's stomach drops. He thinks of Eli's room, his school, the fragile stability they finally have. Fear rushes in fast, louder than courage. For a moment, just a moment, he feels himself leaning backward, thinking maybe he should stop, maybe he should keep his head down now, maybe he has already done enough. The door behind him opens slightly. Eli steps out. "Dad?" he says, holding his drawing tightly. Daniel turns instantly, heart racing. "Eli, I told you. I heard." Eli says quietly. The HOA representatives freeze, clearly uncomfortable now. One of them forces a smile. "Hey there, buddy." Eli doesn't smile back. He looks up at Daniel, then at the two adults, his small voice steady in a way that makes everyone stop moving. "Are you saying my dad is bad?" "No," the woman says quickly. "Of course not." "Then why are you trying to scare him?" Eli asks. Silence falls like a weight. Daniel feels his chest tighten painfully. The man clears his throat. "This is a private matter," he says. "Between adults." Eli shakes his head slowly. "It's about me too," he says. "Because my dad taught me to help people." The guard shifts uncomfortably. The woman looks away. Eli takes a step forward, holding up his drawing, the same one from the night before. Stick figures holding hands under the words "and no one is hungry." His voice trembles slightly now, but he keeps going. "If helping is wrong," Eli says, "then why does it feel right?" No one answers, because there is no safe answer. Neighbors begin stepping outside, drawn by the tension. Whispers spread. Phones come out again, but this time not to accuse, to listen. Daniel drops to one knee beside Eli, his eyes wet. "Buddy," he whispers, overwhelmed. Eli looks at him, searching his face. "You said we don't look away," he says softly. "Are we going to look away now?" That question cuts deeper than any threat ever could. Daniel stands up slowly. He turns back to the HOA representatives, his fear still there, but something stronger standing beside it now. "If staying here means teaching my son to be afraid of doing the right thing," he says calmly, "then maybe this isn't the community you think it is." The words shock even him. The representatives exchange looks. This is not going how they planned. A voice speaks from behind the small crowd. "That will not be necessary." Claire Whitman steps forward again, her presence quiet but commanding, eyes sharp, voice calm. "I was hoping we wouldn't have to do this publicly," she says. The HOA representatives stiffen. "I've reviewed the complaints," Claire continues, "and I find them embarrassing." She looks directly at Daniel, then at Eli, her expression softening. "This family will not be harassed," she says firmly. "Not today, not ever." The man opens his mouth to argue. Claire raises her hand. "If you wish to challenge that," she says evenly, "you may do so through my legal team." That ends it. The representatives nod stiffly, retreating quickly, their power dissolving in front of everyone. The guard steps back. The crowd exhales. Daniel feels his knees weaken, adrenaline draining fast. He looks down at Eli, who is now shaking slightly, the bravery finally catching up with him. Daniel pulls him into a tight hug. "I'm proud of you," Daniel whispers, voice breaking. Eli hugs back just as hard. I was scared, he admits. So was I, Daniel replies. Around them, neighbors stand silently, some wiping their eyes, others staring at the ground, learning something uncomfortable about themselves. That night, as Daniel tucks Eli into bed, Eli looks up sleepily and asks, Dad, did I do okay? Daniel kisses his forehead gently. You did more than okay. He says, you were brave. Eli smiles and closes his eyes. Daniel sits alone afterward, staring at the wall, the fear, the relief, the pride all mixing together. He realizes something important. This was the moment. The moment he almost stepped back, and the moment his son stepped forward instead. And because of that, nothing will ever be the same again. Morning light enters the small shelter room slowly, soft and warm, not harsh like the street, not cold like the HOA lights. Frank opens his eyes and for a moment does not remember where he is. Then the smell of clean sheets, warm food, and silence hits him. Real silence. The kind that does not threaten, and his chest tightens as tears roll down without warning. Across the room, Marissa sits up carefully, holding a cup of tea with both hands like it is something fragile and precious. She watches Frank breathe, steady and calm. Something she has not seen in weeks, maybe months. We made it through the night, she whispers, almost afraid to say it out loud. A nurse knocks gently and steps in, smiling kindly. Good morning, she says. Breakfast is ready, and the doctor will see you soon. Frank nods slowly, overwhelmed, his voice rough. Thank you. 2 simple words, but they carry the weight of a man who had forgotten how it felt to be treated like a human being. Later that day, Daniel and Eli arrive quietly. Not announced, not praised, just present. Eli spots Frank first and breaks into a wide smile, running toward him before Daniel can stop him. Frank bends slowly despite his pain and opens his arms. Eli hugs him tightly, small arms, big heart. You look stronger, Eli says proudly. Frank laughs softly, voice cracking. So do you, kid. Marissa watches them with tears in her eyes. She turns to Daniel. They gave me clean clothes, she says, almost surprised. And they asked me what I want to do next. Her voice shakes. No one's asked me that in a long time. Daniel nods slowly. You deserve that, he says simply. The shelter staff explains the plan gently. Temporary housing, job placement support, medical care. Nothing rushed, nothing forced. Frank listens carefully, nodding, disbelief slowly turning into cautious hope. As days pass, small changes begin stacking quietly. Frank starts physical therapy. Each painful step a reminder that he is still alive. Marissa attends job counseling, sitting straight for the first time in months, speaking about skills she once forgot she had, dignity returning piece by piece. Back in the HOA, the atmosphere shifts slowly, not magically, but noticeably. Neighbors begin greeting Daniel instead of avoiding him. Some awkwardly, some sincerely. A man stops Daniel near the parking area one evening. My son asked me why I didn't help that night, he admits quietly. I didn't sleep well after that. Daniel doesn't judge. He nods. That is enough. A small community board appears near the HOA exit, handwritten notes taped to it. Food drive this Saturday. Closed donations welcome. No one should go hungry. Eli adds his own drawing to the board. A smiling stick family holding hands. People stop to look. Some smile, some swallow hard. One afternoon, Frank walks into a job interview wearing donated clothes that fit just right. His back still hurts, but his posture is different now, steadier. The manager listens, really listens and says, we can start you part-time. Frank grips the chair to keep himself steady. Tears blur his vision. Thank you, he says, barely audible. Marissa calls Daniel that evening, her voice shaking with joy. I got the job, she says. It's not big, but it's honest. Daniel smiles quietly. That's everything. At home, Daniel watches Eli do homework at the small table. The boy hums softly. At peace, Daniel realizes something important. Fear no longer rules their home. Conversations are lighter. Laughter comes easier. The bond between father and son deeper than ever. That night, Eli asks softly, Dad, Do you think they'll be okay forever now? Daniel thinks carefully, then answers honestly. Life is still hard, he says, but now they're not alone. Eli nods, satisfied that answer is enough. Weeks later, the shelter hosts a small dinner. Nothing fancy, just shared food and quiet gratitude. Frank stands up slowly and clears his throat, hands shaking. I want to say something, he says, eyes moving to Daniel and Eli. I thought the world forgot us. His voice cracks, but a child reminded it. The room is silent. Marissa wipes her eyes. Daniel looks down, overwhelmed. Eli squeezes his hand proudly. Outside, the HOA lights glow softly, no longer cold, no longer threatening. Rules still exist, but hearts have begun to wake up, not because of speeches, not because of power, but because a single dad chose not to silence his son's kindness, and as Frank and Marissa step back into the world, stronger than before, one truth settles deep into everyone who witnessed it. Kindness does not fix everything, but it gives people their feet back. And once someone can stand again, they can begin walking toward a future. Time moves forward in a way Daniel never noticed before, not rushing, not dragging, just steady. Weeks turn into months, and the HOA community slowly begins to feel unfamiliar. Not because the buildings change, but because the people do. Daniel walks the same streets every morning. Lunchbox in one hand, Eli's backpack in the other, but the weight in his chest is lighter now. Neighbors nod instead of staring. Some even stop to talk. Awkward at first, unsure how to approach the man who unknowingly held up a mirror to their choices. At Eli's school, things change too. Teachers talk about kindness openly. Not as a lesson from a book, but as something real, something one of their students lived. Eli never brags, never explains unless asked. But when he does, he speaks simply, they were hungry. And somehow that is enough. Daniel watches his son grow braver in quiet ways. Eli raises his hand more, speaks with confidence, helps classmates without fear of being laughed at. The boy who once asked a question that shook a system now asks many more, and each one carries the same simple honesty. One evening, Daniel receives a message from Claire Whitman, short and calm. Community meeting tomorrow. Just listen. Daniel almost doesn't go. He is tired of rooms with chairs and rules, but Eli insists. Inside the community hall, the mood is different from before. No raised platform, no microphones, just chairs in a circle. Residents sit together, some uncomfortable, some hopeful. Claire stands briefly, then sits like everyone else. A man speaks first, clearing his throat. I fined someone once for feeding a stray dog. He admits, shame heavy in his voice. I told myself rules mattered more. He pauses. I was wrong. Another woman speaks next. I walked past Frank and Marissa that night. She says quietly. I still see their faces. No one interrupts. No one defends. People listen. Daniel feels something settle inside him. Not victory, but relief. The burden of being the only one standing is gone now. After the meeting, Eli tugs Daniel's sleeve. Pointing to the corner of the room, Frank and Marissa stand there. Both looking healthier, stronger. Frank wears a work jacket now. Marissa's eyes are bright, no longer hollow. Frank steps forward slowly, his voice steady. I start full-time next week, he says proudly. Daniel smiles softly. You earned it. Marissa kneels in front of Eli, holding out a small paper bag. We baked cookies, she says, laughing nervously. It felt important. Eli grins wide. Thank you, he says, then adds, you don't look hungry anymore. Marissa laughs, then cries. That night, Daniel and Eli sit on their small balcony. City lights blinking in the distance. Eli swings his legs gently, thinking, Dad, he asks, do you think people help now because they're scared? Daniel considers the question carefully. Some might be, he answers honestly. But some help because they finally noticed. Eli nods slowly, satisfied. Down the street, the HOA notice board fills with new notes. Rides offered. Meals shared. Job leads pinned with hope. Not everyone participates. Not everyone changes. But enough do that the silence feels broken forever. Daniel returns to the same trash area one evening. Not because he has to, But because he wants to, the space is empty now, clean, quiet. He stands there for a moment, remembering fear, judgment, the sound of a child's voice asking the hardest question in the simplest way. Eli steps beside him and holds his hand. "This is where it started," he says softly. Daniel nods. "Yeah," his voice calm. "This is where we chose." As they walk home, Daniel realizes something important. The world did not change because of power or money or rules rewritten. It changed because someone refused to explain away hunger. And now that refusal lives on in others. Inside their apartment, Daniel tucks Eli into bed. Eli yawns and smiles sleepily. "Dad," he says, eyes half closed, "I'm glad we didn't stop helping." Daniel leans down and kisses his forehead gently. "Me too, buddy." As the lights go out, Daniel sits alone for a moment, thinking about fear, about choice, about how close he came to backing down, and how grateful he is that he didn't. Outside, the HOA cameras still blink, rules still exist, but they no longer tell the whole story. The real story is quieter now, lived in kitchens, hallways, shelters, and small hands offering food without hesitation. The ripples continue spreading unseen, unrecorded, changing lives. And in the center of it all, a single dad and his son walk forward, not as heroes, but as proof that kindness, once chosen, does not stop that it multiplies. Years pass quietly, not with loud celebrations, not with headlines or awards, but with small moments stacking on top of each other, moments that shape lives without asking for attention. Daniel walks through the same HOA community, now older, calmer, his steps steady, his shoulders relaxed. The place no longer feels like an enemy, just a neighborhood learning slowly how to be human. Eli walks beside him, taller now, his voice deeper, his questions still honest, still fearless. The boy who once asked why no one was helping has grown into someone who never waits for permission to care. Daniel watches him sometimes and feels something tighten in his chest, pride mixed with gratitude, knowing life could have taught his son a very different lesson that night. They stop near the old community board, the one once filled with rules and warnings, now covered in flyers for food drives, volunteer days, shelter fundraisers, simple notes written by hand. "Need help? Call me. Extra groceries here. No one eats alone." Daniel traces one paper with his finger and smiles softly. Across the street, Frank locks up the small workshop where he now works full-time. His back still aches, but his posture is strong, dignity returned. Marissa steps out of a nearby cafe wearing an apron, laughing with coworkers. Their lives not perfect, but real, built again piece by piece. When they see Daniel and Eli, they wave, not as people who were saved, but as equals who stood back up. Later that evening, a small gathering forms in the park. Nothing official, just neighbors bringing food, kids running, elders sitting quietly, laughter floating through the air. Daniel sits on a bench watching Eli help a younger child tie his shoes. Patient, gentle, the same way he once held out a sandwich without hesitation. Claire Whitman sits beside Daniel, watching the scene with quiet satisfaction. "You never asked for credit," she says softly. Daniel shakes his head. "I just didn't want my son to learn the wrong thing." Claire nods, understanding completely. "You gave this place a conscience," she says. "That's rarer than influence." As the sun sets, Eli runs over and sits beside Daniel, slightly out of breath. "Dad," he says, smiling, "remember when you were scared?" Daniel laughs softly, surprised. "Yeah," he admits, "I remember." Eli looks thoughtful, then says the words Daniel will carry for the rest of his life. "I was scared too, but I knew we were doing the right thing." Daniel feels his throat tighten. He pulls Eli into a hug without saying anything, because some moments don't need words. That night, after the park empties and the lights dim, Daniel and Eli walk home together. The same path they once walked with fear in their chests, now filled with peace. They pass the corner near the trash area where it all began. Daniel stops for a moment. Eli does too. "This is where it started," Eli says quietly. Daniel nods. "Yeah." Eli looks up at his father. "If it happened again," he asks, "would we do it the same way?" Daniel does not hesitate. "Yes," he says firmly. "Every time." Eli smiles, satisfied. Inside their apartment, Daniel opens a small box he keeps tucked away. Inside are simple things: Eli's old drawing that says "No one is hungry," a folded notice that once threatened them, now meaningless, and a photo someone took that night, blurry, imperfect, but powerful, a father kneeling beside his son. Daniel places the box back gently, not as a reminder of fear, but as proof of choice. As the lights go out, the HOA community rests quietly. Cameras still blink, rules still exist, but they no longer define the place. The real identity lives in shared meals, open doors, and people who no longer pretend hunger is invisible. And somewhere, in another part of the city, a stranger sees someone in need and stops, not because they were told to, not because they are brave, but because kindness has become normal. That is the real ending, because the greatest legacy is not money, not power, not even change. It is a lesson passed forward. From one question, from one choice, from one single dad and his son who refused to walk away.